We are headed to Jerry World today. Dallas Cowboys, number 13. Was I too high on the Cowboys? Dallas Cowboy fans seem to be so hard on themselves. If there's any fan base that is hard on themselves as the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know. But either which way, we're going to get into this thing. Look at this roster. Start with the offensive line. I rank it all over the board. You got the tackle position at 30th. You got the guard position at second. The center position kind of like right in the middle. It's all over the spectrum here with this offensive line. But what I will say, one of the biggest strengths, at least going into the future with this offensive line, looks to be this interior. It looks mean, like, and I mean in a good way. I would be scared if I was opposing the interior defensive lines. Like, you better have sexy Dexy on the other end because if not, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. These dudes are going to be able to run block and they're going to be having some lanes open up all days. And I think eventually, too, when Booker gets better as a pass protector, they could certainly be a very, very good pass protecting unit as well. Tyler Smith's been able to, as we all know, he's a top three. I have him as like probably number two, number one in the NFL. He's right there as the best guard in the NFL. And then you got Cooper Beebe. So this rounds out a very, very solid core. That's why we don't really need to talk about this too much. Plus, they got good depth. Brock Hoffman, he was no schnuff. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a word, but he was nothing to scoff at. That dude can play. So if you need him in a pinch, he can play guard, can play center. You got Robert Jones, who they pick up from the Dolphins. You got TJ Bass, who also has versatility. Like, they're in a really good spot on the interior. I would, if anybody else were to make the roster besides those three guys, Shadik Charles is going to be competing with guys like Lel Collins and Genie Cornelia, 6th round pick, and all these other guys, Akeem Denergy for practice squad spots and potentially one roster spot maybe filled out of these dudes here. I would expect those six guys on the interior to make the roster. And then at tackle wise, this is going to be key because Tyler Guyton is now out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Sucks. Luckily, he avoided an ACL tear. That would have been even worse. And it's rough because he needed this time in preseason and in training camp, especially going into year number two. We want to see how he's looking along and improving and stuff like that. A guy that was very raw coming out of Oklahoma. I wanted him this time, this reps. So like going into the season, like if he's, I believe they play the Eagles week 1 too, which is not going to be good. So if he has to do that coming off an injury, and that's going to be a little tricky situation. So Asim Richards, Nathan Thomas, I hear are battling out right now. I hear Thomas has got the edge. I hear he's looking really good. So that's going to be, if he's looking solid, then that's good. He's got that raging Cajun in him, and he's the guy going to year number two after a 7th round pick last year. I think this tackle room is going to be their biggest question mark in this offense line, but the interior looks like a key strength of this team, and they need to run behind this. And that's why going into the offseason, they may want to spend a decent pick on a running back if possible, with as good as this interior could be for the future and how much value that they could get out of that. Now, wide receiver wise, I rank them fifth. There's no concerns here. It really just comes down to who's going to be that third wide receiver. For me, I'm a huge Cavante Turpin fan. I think that guy needs to be utilized. Hopefully, Brian Schottenheimer, they get this dude more than just a gadget guy. Like, get him the ball in his hands on slants and screens, and just, man, especially when you got CeeDee Lamb and freaking George Pickens on the outside. Like, come on. Yeah, Turpin's got to be used this season on offense, not just special teams. He's so electric. And George Pickens as a vertical threat, CeeDee Lamb can do everything. Like, it's just, yeah, George Pickens looking for his money as well. So it's going to be a fun year for this Cowboys wide receiving room. That I don't think will be an issue like last year. Now, in terms of besides that, obviously got Jalen Tolbert's going to be competing for a fourth or third, fourth wide receiver position. Ryan Flournoy has been out there making some big plays vertically. Jonathan Mingo has been also been making some big jump ball plays out there here in camp. Trayshawn Holden, I've seen him run some routes, man. He's looked good out there too. So they've got some guys, Jalen Brooks, etc. We'll see who ends up making that six wide receiver position if they keep six, which I would guess they keep six wide receivers. On to the tight end room, which also looks solid. I'm not worried about this. You got Jake Ferguson, just got a contract extension, good solid tight end coming off a down year. I fully expect him to be way better this season, as is general in the offense. Luke Schoonmaker, I love the name. He's got to show that he can play like he did at the end of the season last year. And then you got Brevin Spanford injured right now. I do think that when he gets healthy, though, he still should end up making the roster. John Stevens will fill in that role as my guess. Watch out for Fairweather. I liked some of his film at Auburn, so maybe he has a chance. He's probably more of a practice squad guy. Maybe year number two, we'll see where he ends up with his development and whatnot. As I said, this tight end room, it's fine. It's not an elite room, but they'll get the job done. And then why running back wise, yeah, I'm not super confident about this running back room. They're teetered there for me with the 32nd. They're like in the bottom three of the NFL, and we shall see about Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I think Jaden Blue might end up winning the job at some point this season. at least for explosiveness, that guy can make some plays. So he's going to be able to be electric and give them that big playability on this offense. And behind a really good interior offensive line running in there, just let him make those big plays. Like give him a little crease, even if his vision is unbelievable. That guy just give him a lane and he's gone. So I think that there might be their best option. Who knows? But I'm curious to see with Phil Maffei how he looks in preseason. Same thing with Deuce Vaughn. They're going to be competing for a roster spot. I think Maffei probably has the edge since he was the draft pick this season. Vaughn is probably a practice squad candidate. My guess is, though, that Williams, Blue, Sanders, Luebke are locked in. Obviously, Luebke as the hybrid utility man fullback on the roster. So there's four in this running back room. Would they keep a fifth? That's a little bit up to determine because you may want to keep an extra corner with the injuries that they have in right now, or an extra linebacker or edge rusher since they're so deep there. You might want to keep six of those guys. So those are all things to consider. They may want to just put those guys on practice squad. I'm very curious to see who ended up keep. But for me personally, Jaden Blue has a real shot to win this job by the end of the season. Like it's wide open, and they're going to need him to step up. They're going to need somebody to step up because I am worried about this running back room as of right now. Quarterback, Dak Prescott is in the building. I know, love it or hate it with Dak Prescott. And Dallas Cowboys fans, I feel like, are so hard on Dak Prescott. And I get it. It doesn't, at times not clutch, especially in big moments. It's like, where does he go at times? Can he be a quarterback that really excels if things aren't going good? Of course, those are things all question mark with Dak Prescott. But personally, I do think he's better than what he gets credit for. He is definitely a starting quarterback in the NFL that can play as a top 10 quarterback, too. And I bet he's got a ton of Dundee awards, put in the building. He may not have a Super Bowl, but I bet he gets some Dundies out there for this Dallas Cowboys team. He can make some plays. I don't know, the Dundies. Going back to football, though, any which way. Going here to the backup position with Joe Milton III, who they traded for from New England. And for me, I am very excited to see his cannon arm in preseason. But at the same time, Will Greer, I would probably try to practice squad him. I would just keep two quarterbacks. That way you can keep another, running back or an edge rusher or whatever. Go on to the defense now, and let's start with the defensive line. The edge room, I rank it number 3 in the NFL. It's a very, very, very good one. You can make the argument it's the best in the NFL. And after the season with Donovan Ezeraku, this defensive line could be the best in the NFL. I cannot wait to see Donovan Ezeraku. He was a top 2 edge rusher for me in this draft. He's somebody that is probably the most polished edge rusher coming out of this draft too. Like you talk about a guy that has plenty of pass rush moves. He's so dangerous. Just like I was talking about him as a Micah Parsons type of guy. Now he's not the athlete that Micah Parsons is. Okay, like Micah Parsons' explosiveness and whatnot is on a different. I mean, no, there's not many people in the NFL that are like a Micah Parsons like athlete. But in terms of what Micah Parsons does so well with that lateral agility to win on the inside counter moves and that Euro step and he's just his spin moves. Donovan Ezeraku has that to his game so well. He wins with inside counters so consistently. He's got a dangerous spin move. So while he's not the explosive athlete that Micah Parsons is, he is a really solid athlete that has the lateral twitch and the bend. He has a tremendous bend. And his profile, his strength profile is better than you would think it is. I thought he held up well in at least in the ACC, and that's not obviously an easy conference or anything like that in the run game. So Ezra is a guy that I think could be come out here and make a case for him to be the starter opposite of Micah Parsons very soon. Obviously, you got Dante Fowler. I list this as a starter with that veteran leadership here. Marshawn Nealand, I would imagine maybe he's the starter in base formations. Peyton Turner could play a little in base formations too as a good run edge setter. He's had the injury bug. Same thing with Sam Williams. And those guys are going to be competing for roster spots. If they only keep 5 of these guys, then obviously you got Parsons, Ezeraku, and Dante Fowler and Nealand. Those are your 4 that are locked in there, and then you have competition for a 5th spot. And Micah Parsons also, I need to mention this. Jerry, give him whatever he wants. Give him all your money. I don't care what you have to do, but give him ownership. Make sure he's back. Going back to this, though, it will be interesting to see if they keep 5 or 6 guys. I almost would say try to keep Peyton if you can and Williams if possible, if both of those guys are healthy. James Houston, Tyrus Wheat could be practice squad candidates for this football team. Now, shifting over to the interior, where this is where some of my concerns come into this roster, Osa Diguzua was great, and he was phenomenal last season. However, you look at the rest of this interior defensive line, and you're like, oh, no, it's not looking good, right? Mozzie Smith. Come on, Mozzie. He's injured again right now. I hear it's nothing serious, but we need to see him out there. Like, that's the thing. We need to see him get reps. Just like I talked about with Guyton, he's a guy that we need to see him out on the football field. Let him just go up and hopefully this season they let him to get stronger, get bigger, and just line up as like a nose tackle type next to Osa Diguzia. Even if he can just hold the point of attack, that's a win at this point for this what this defensive line needs. You have Jay Tuia, who's really the true nose tackle at this point on their interior defensive line. Besides that, they got a lot of situational pass rushers, Solomon Thomas, Perrin Winfrey, Tommy Aking Basote. Their seventh round pick from Maryland this past draft. So he's a guy that can also be another situational pass rusher. Got to get a little stronger. That's really my six grouping there. If they only keep five, then I think their competition is going to be between King Basote and Winfrey. And my guess was King Basote would end up winning that because of him being a draft pick this season. Overall, this defensive line should be solid as long as they can do decent on offense. So that way they can keep teams passing. That's really my biggest thing. Keep teams passing so that way they don't have to worry about the run game so much. And speaking of stopping the run, you need to have a good linebacking core to do that. And with Demarion Overshown likely on the pup list for the first 4 weeks or whatever, he's on, he's injured right now. So that's something he may take a little bit of time. I do factor in Overshown at least a little bit into this ranking, and that's why it's 16th. And at the same time, I actually don't mind this linebacking room. And if there's one guy that I feel super confident that will make this linebacking room better than what it is, it's Matt Eberflus. Like he is a very good coach linebacker wise. I mean, that's his background. He's had a proven record of developing linebackers. So there's that to it. Kenneth Murray's solid. I mean, I don't think he's unbelievable or anything like that, but he's solid. He's I believe actually delivering. He's got a baby on the way, so congrats to him and everything like that. Jack Sanborn could end up being the starter early on in the season alongside Kenneth Murray while Overshown is out. Sanborn is a good player, and he's been a rotational player for the Bears. Now gets an opportunity maybe to start for himself, so that's good. Maurice Luafau, a guy that I like a lot from Notre Dame, and what I saw from him too last year really strikes my eye. He's a guy that has a lot of upside with his athleticism and coverage, and he's a dynamic blitzer too. Now another guy who's got plenty of upside is Shamar James from Florida. I personally, hopefully he makes the roster. I'd be shocked if he didn't make the roster. Fifth round pick. And with his upside, he's another guy that has a lot of developmental upside as like a will backup linebacker for them. And Damone Clark, I'm hearing good things about him in training camp so far right now. And maybe we can see an improved Damone Clark. That would give him even more depth. So those six guys to me are good chances to make the roster, especially obviously Overshown's gonna, he's just gonna be on the injury list. So technically it'd be five for the time being. And then I think they roll into the season like that. And maybe Johnson, Harris, and Barron, practice squad candidates for this football team. So in general, I'm not actually super worried about this linebacking core. Is it elite? No, but I think they'll be fine. I think they're right in the middle of the NFL range. On to the cornerback room, which I rank at 17th. This is tough because they've had so many injuries, and I did do the rankings a lot before the injuries really started piling up. At the same time, I still think the cornerback room is going to be okay. And with Eberflus, as I mentioned, coming in here, he's going to play a good amount of zone coverage. These guys will be able to figure it out. And Elam, I'm hearing great things. I'm here. He's making tons of interceptions, tons of plays in training camp right now. I can't wait to see that Elam. Let's go. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. We've been looking for that Kyler Elam for a couple of years now. He's been so inconsistent. Like there'll be moments where he's like, oh my gosh, he's big time plays. You go back to what Pittsburgh game, was it a year ago, whatever, and then you go to some other games where it's like in the playoffs last year and like what was going on there with Kyrie Elam. So there's been ups and downs with Kyrie Elam throughout his career. If he can level some things out and Matt Eberflus can coach him up here, then that would be huge for this football team because they really need somebody to step up. So that word going on with training camp, I hope that continues. That they need it. Jerron Bland, I still think is the team's number one corner. I like him a lot. I think Bland can be a really top tier corner still. He's got all the tools to be. Trayvon Diggs is injured, and then we get into the injuries, right? Siobhan Revel, unfortunately, got a little bit of a bad news injury update where he's going to be out for a good chunk of the season, possibly. You got Josh Butler's injured, Kalen Carson's injured. We mentioned Diggs. Like they've got injuries, and that's why they're going to have to figure some things out here. Israel McQuama can play inside and out. I list Deron Bland in the slot, but once again, these guys like Bland with the injuries is going to play on the outside. I'm guessing that McQuama, even Hall is technically listed as the number one slot corner right now on the depth chart. So we'll see how that all works out as we go into preseason, how they all look, and I'll get these rankings accordingly, adjusted accordingly. But for right now, I would say that Mukwama, Booth, Hall, Pride, Goodwin could still make it for special teams or be a practice squad guy that they elevate for special teams purposes and whatnot. So we'll see how that works out. But I think Pride, Hall, Mukwama, Booth have a good chance to make the roster with the amount of injuries going on, at least to start the season. On to the safety room, even though this is ranked 25th, I'm actually not super worried about this room. Like the interior defense line, I rank it technically higher than the safety room, but at the same time, I'm actually not super worried just because they got a solid safety room. Like the defense tackle, you have a major weakness This room doesn't have a major weakness. Malik Hooker, solid. Donovan Wilson, yeah, coming off a down year, in my opinion, but at the same time, he's a solid safety that could bounce back. Both of these guys, I think, are looking for a bit of a bounce back year, and I expect better play. You got Waniya Thomas, Marquise Bell, giving them some good depth. Elijah Clark, if there's one dude that I think could end up making the roster as a fifth guy, I like Elijah Clark. He's a guy that has a lot of a linear explosiveness and athleticism, and he can make some plays. Now, he drops a lot of interceptions, I will say that, so you got to get better with his hands. But he's another dude that could really be a special teams, a lot of upside with special teams purposes for Elijah Clark. Now, going on to the coaching here, I ranked them at 26, and it seemed like everybody was saying, oh, Brian Schottenheimer was the worst coaching hire. Really, to me, it just says this wasn't the flashiest of hires out of everybody else. Like, yeah, it may not be the Sean Payton of the offseason or a flashy Bill Belichick hire or something like that. Ultimately, like Schottenheimer is a solid offensive mind. I think he's a really good schematic person, and I think as like a head coach, he might even be better than a play caller personally. So let Clayton Adams get that opportunity here as a former Arizona Cardinal offensive line coach. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. And I thought Clayton Adams did a good job in Arizona too. So he's gonna maybe have some wonders for this offensive line, which is, obviously tackle wise, definitely needs to improve and whatnot. So we shall see how that works out and his chance to be an offensive coach. But Brian Schottenheimer, I do think is a solid head coach hire. I really do. I think he's underrated in terms of where he was being ranked at in terms of hires this offseason. So while maybe not be elite, I don't know. I do think he's going to be better than what people think he's going to be. And then you got Matt Eberflus. Like this rounds out a good, solid coaching staff. So Schottenheimer brings experience on the offensive side and also good schematics. And then Matt Eberflus, I mean, he's super experienced. He's a solid defensive mind. I think they're in a pretty good spot, and Adams has some upside there, what he could be as an offensive coordinator. Let's finish it up with the ranking. I have them at 13th, and this is my record prediction at 10-7. It is going to be a challenge. They're in a tough division. You got to play Washington. You got to play the Eagles twice a year. And hey, the Giants, hey, they're going to be improved. Okay, that's tough defensive line, especially for this football team. They got to protect the tackles. Could be a tougher team, tougher opponent than people expect. So there's no guarantee wins out there. Cowboys, though, do make the playoffs in this scenario. And they are a team that I do think has a legit chance to compete, but injuries are a huge, huge question for me. And then it comes down to the tackles. Can they protect Dak Prescott versus elite football teams? Those are the areas that I'm most concerned about. The injuries, stopping the run, and protecting Dak Prescott. If they can do that, then they're legit football. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. There's just question marks kept me from putting them higher. But I do think they're a very talented roster. I hope you guys have a really good day, though. Let me know what you think, Cowboys fans, and I'll talk to you later.